This is such a wonderful event, and these sorts of events are so important. Food is it's a universal language, isn't it, to bring people together. And this event, apples and borscht, Herefordshire and Ukraine, it just works perfectly, bringing people together around a shared table. And there's something about eating food together, having that conversation together, that's just wonderful. It creates a feeling of closeness. It creates a feeling of something to talk about, something to share, something that each is giving to the other. And so I just think that's absolutely wonderful. I have had a wonderful time here today. I've tasted food that I've never tasted before, and it's just such a beautiful atmosphere, such a warm atmosphere. And I think you're really right that sharing food, sharing stuff about your own culture, bringing your own culture into this community, it's a real gift. And it's also really important to help one remember, what home is about, not just war, like you say, but all the wonderful things about home. I've lived abroad myself, and I remember that feeling of living in another country. And I mean, actually just drinking a cup of tea in another country, kind of reminding me of home. That sort of sense of connection, it's so powerful and so important. I think food is really crucial like that. And one of the things that I love about the UK is that we do have a sort of lots of different threads that have fed into British culture and connected in lots of food cultures, feeding, I don't know, Indian food, for example, and have been kind of, adopted and sort of become part of the great melting pot that is British culture. And it's wonderful that Ukrainian culture is also now mixed into that pot altogether. We used to have an apple tree, and my mum would prepare the apples and then freeze them, and throughout the winter we would have stewed apple for pudding. So that's a real sort of comfort food. Apple crumble with sort of lovely crumble on top. My favourite food now, though, is a sort of bean stew, beans and vegetables. I just find that it feels so filling and nutritious and healthy and hearty. That's my perfect food, a bit of bean stew with some rice. But the peppers that we had today, the stuffed peppers with the millet and the mushrooms, that was absolutely lovely. Fantastic tastes coming together, and so lovely to hear the story behind it as well. The value of hospitality, of people welcoming others into their home, especially when somebody is in need, is fleeing violence. That's such a kind of fundamental human impulse.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful to celebrate that and to recognize it and to remember it, to commit it to camera, so that memory is held and celebrated. And I think, I think that the British people are an incredibly generous people. I think that is a universal human value, actually, because I think we've shown that there's that kind of, the citizens of the UK want to give hospitality to those who need it. And there's something, people that I've talked to who've opened their homes out. I've in the past welcomed refugees into my home, and it's a two-way interaction. If you can offer safety and support in somebody's time of need, but then your life is so enriched by people coming in and sharing a different culture, a different food culture. That kind of interaction and those connections that are built are so important, because what is life about, really, except building connections with other people and finding ways to work together to make things better for the next generation. When you first asked me to think of a tradition connected with home, the thing that came into my mind was being around a campfire with marshmallows on sticks. Do you know what I mean? With marshmallows on sticks melting around the fire. And that's a tradition for me really strongly associated with bonfire night. And that gathering around a fire, for me, being around the warmth of a fire is so central to the idea of home. We had a fire when I was young, when I was growing up. And so remembering that, crumpets and jam on a Sunday afternoon, on a winter's evening in front of the fire when it's cold outside. So that's something that really is meaningful for me. I think you're absolutely right that food is so central to our ideas of home and our memories of home. And if I think back to my grandparents, so one set of grandparents was from Kent in the south of England, and they had, you know, a huge garden, grew lots of their own food. And my grandma would cook for England. She really would. She would bake for England. And I remember when we went to visit her, there were normally 6 or 8 different sorts of cakes and biscuits in different tins. There was this cupboard in her kitchen, and we knew as small children, we knew when we went there, there would be all of these different cakes and biscuits to explore. And I think that, you know, for her, that was a way of showing love by cooking for us. And for many people, that's a key way of showing love, isn't it? To cook food, to share food.